This is an old-fashioned deal, not talking about compute, but actually one company buying another. And the price tags, starts the day at $40 billion. That at least based on where Kenvue was and where the stock price, importantly, of Kimberly-Clark was prior to trading today. And that's what we'll say. But it's not going to be worth $40 billion once we get started with trading 23 minutes from now, because Kimberly-Clark stock is going to be down rather sharply. Now, the terms of the deal, let's just give you the basics here. $3.50 a share in cash. The remainder in Kimberly stock. It's, 0.14. There it is. Yeah, 0.14625. That did equate to about $21. It won't be worth that again, as I said, given the decline in Kimberly stock. We'll get to that in a moment. But they are talking about $2.1 billion of synergies here, largely made up of cost, but also some revenue synergies as well as they combine all of these brands. Jim, I've been following this for some time, given there have been a number of significant shareholders who are ready to challenge the entire board because of the mismanagement at Kenvue and the fact that they wanted the company sold. This is the deal that they've gotten done. There had been some talk. I'd certainly reported on P&G, at least as speculated. I don't believe they were ever there in a really significant way, in part because of antitrust risk and how many divestitures they would have to undertake. But what this also is about is the P&G multiple. And when I say that, I mean the hope is that Kimberly-Clark will buy this company, realize those synergies, get everything in shape at Kenvue, and one day be able to actually aspire to and reach a P&G multiple of some 21 times earnings, as opposed to when you synergy adjust the current multiple, it's about 10. And so that would be the hope here, given that if you're a Kenvue shareholder, you're going to own 46% of this combined company. As I reported earlier, these guys started talking back in June. In fact, Kimberly-Clark was interested in acquiring this company in a reverse Morris Trust deal before it even was spun by J&J. That obviously didn't happen. It was spun. It hasn't done well. You've shown that.
No, but I got to tell you, I love this deal.
Why?
Okay, because where Kimberly is strong, they're not. China. Where they're strong, Europe. Kimberly's not. Kimberly has an understanding and data which shows that Tylenol has not been hurt by any of the problems that the government's talked about. But remember, it's also just about pregnant women. Okay, the lawsuits that accrue talc to Europe, because that was carved off from J&J, they don't have the same kind of punitive laws over there. They don't have huge damages.
Right.
So that looked bad. It was almost like a poison pill. It's not so bad.
But you can see the decline in Kenvue stock price, which has taken place largely recently because of RFK and the Trump administration's arguing that there is a linkage between autism and Tylenol use in pregnant women. None of which, by the way, has been actually shown through data, I don't believe.
No,
correct?
It's not. Nor has there been. There's been over and over again what Tylenol's actual liability is, and it's been just nil. No one's really focused on it.
And there are some of the brands we're talking about, of course, that Kimberly will now control.
Now, David, they got attacked pretty heavily by Stormberg. I know they had 3 members of the board. Jeff?
Yeah, I talked to Jeff Smith a couple of weeks ago about this situation.
I mean, to me, this is a company that should be. If it weren't for the fact of RFK, the stock would be at 21, 22.
Well, and it did impact the overall value for Kenvue shareholders. Now, it was a 50% premium, so that is a very large premium. That said, the multiple still well below the median multiple for deals in the consumer product space, which had it come close to or even exceeded 18 times EBITDA oftentimes. This thing getting done at a multiple of around 14 plus times. There's one of the reasons why the stock got hit so badly is that there's been this continued, at least, linkage claimed but not proven.
Less than 1%. Less than 1% is pregnant women.
Is Kimberly stock down, Jim, because of fears about continued litigation around this and what they will take on, as opposed to just what we typically see, which will be arb pressure as you set it up, given it's largely stock-based deal? You do short the acquirer.
They feel like they're buying this gigantic legal hornet's nest. And I come back and say that Mike Hsu, who, by the way, has a very good balance sheet at Kimberly, has done a lot of right things, has had to really undo a lot of stuff, is getting an opportunity to become a much bigger company at a much lower price.
They're going to be very similar to P&G in a way, right?
Yes, but P&G is an expensive stock.
Right. Well, if you can get that kind of a multiple, then you are obviously getting in at a good time potentially here.
Absolutely.
If you're a believer that they can deliver on these synergies and that this litigation risk is way overblown.
And that's where I am. I happen to think that Mike walked me through this deal, and I feel great about the deal, if only just because they knew that their stock was going to get hit. They didn't think, well, wait a second, our stock's going to trade up today. They said, listen, it's going to be a long haul.
Yeah.
But we're creating something that is much bigger than what the street likes right now. The street obviously doesn't like Kimberly.
No. Consumer discretionary and staples underperformed the broader market by 600 basis points last week.
Yeah.
One of the worst underperformance weeks in years.
I know. Well, look, no one thinks we're about to go into recession. You're supposed to buy Kimberly.
Except the Secretary of the Treasury says parts of the economy are in recession.
Well, I watched 60 Minutes, so it says you get a lot of alternative universe kind of things, numbers being tossed about. But I do think that you have Kimberly-Clark is becoming suddenly, it's got that line of products that I love. We forget these are amazing products.
No, they are.
Everybody has them at home. Your whole bathroom is filled with this stuff.
To the extent people, diapers obviously is a key part of their line. And
well, you can go even
to the
further
extent
than
that you're buying diapers a lot, you can sell a lot of other products.
Well, how about the baby boom diaper? Don't forget the baby boom diaper.
Right. Thanks for reminding me.
No, that's
I should point out
business.
on the Tylenol, just sort of to get a little deeper here on the Tylenol risk, it is going to be taken on by Kimberly. The issue of autism is rest in the material adverse effect clause, material adverse change clause definition, and it has been carved out. So, in other words, Tylenol can't constitute a material adverse change if there were something, so long as it doesn't deviate from what has already been disclosed. That's the best way I could describe it at this point. That does give you some protection if you're a Kenvue shareholder.
Well, I think that no matter what, you actually want to consider Kimberly-Clark stock. I like the deal. I'm not an arbiter, but boy, I got to tell you, I never thought I'd see it this cheap. Kimberly-Clark is one of the greatest brand names of all time. And you're seeing it at a price that basically rolls back years.
And you like
years,
this guy's shoe? You think he does a good job?
I like Mike's shoe. I think Mike's shoe's trying to make this company into a great growth company again. And he had to get rid of a lot of things. There were a lot of mistakes. There were a lot of bad contracts they had.
Paper businesses in Europe and things like that.
The worst thing was that they were making if you go to Costco, they were making Costco's Kirkland signature product. Committee gets their own at a fraction of the price.
Yep.
I mean, who does that?
Right.
You can buy ours, which we make and charge $1, or you can buy theirs, which we make and they charge 80 cents. I mean, Mike came in, he said, I got to get out of these deals. And he had to undo a lot of dumb things. Dumb.
Yeah.